So, hello, Marilyn Manson.
Hello.
You're well known as a musician, and as far as I know, you started painting very early, parallel to the other career. So what does connect these, the musician with the painter, with the visual artist, and where do you see significant differences?
I think there's always been, when I look back at the records that I've made in the past, they've always been in my mind sort of movies or story, like visual. And I've tried very hard to, and lyrically, I think when I look back at my old lyrics, they were very visual. Like you would see in a script, like Alfred Hitchcock's script, because Alfred Hitchcock wrote these very visual scripts and the dialogue was very minimum. And when I started painting, I started to learn maybe more how to make music differently. So it complemented each other to me personally as expression. But I think that I've tried to separate the two for quite some time because I wanted to earn the respect as an artist. Simply as an artist, I didn't want it to be related to people knowing me as Marilyn Manson. And I think this exhibition marks a very important part of my art career for me. It's very important to me. I think this is the most relevant exhibit in my career as an artist. And it also, that inspires me because I'm making a new record and I want to now cross those two boundaries where it's no longer separate, not self-conscious of keeping them apart. I was very self-conscious of combining them because I didn't want it to seem like a hobby.
Right, but there is, for me, there is an essential issue you're dealing with, a kind of theme which is based on, in a way, the story of evil. There is terror, there is pain, there is fear. And when I saw your work, I got the feeling this is a significant part of that history of evil. And so what does interest you about that side, that aspect of life, which is important for us all?
Well, I mean, if you look at, fairy tales or, cartoons or children's stories of the Bible or any work of fiction, for me, the villain has always been the more appealing character, with the more human qualities, the more, the character that I could be related to far easier than the hero, which is almost unattainable, and it's unrealistic. And it's also, I think, very hypocritical, the hero in most stories. And I think that's why anyone who is an artist always will identify with what the status quo would identify as negative. Negative is always relative to whose opinion it is. Good and evil is, the two words. It's part of man. Man has both, and if you don't have both, then you're not a complete soul. So I think that people often mistake me for a nihilist because they think that I don't care about anything, or an atheist, that I don't believe in God. I think what I believe is that God is synonymous with art. Creation really defines what mankind's desire to find the definition of God is. That just using the Bible as a basic reference, creation. An artist puts things into the world, makes things that people can identify with. Some people will hate them, some people will love them, but you're putting something into the world. And ironically, then you've got politicians and religious leaders that want to take things out of the world, and they're standing behind the guise of representing the very book that suggests the exact opposite. So, that's why I've always attached myself to being angry about the hypocrisy in America. But I've changed my opinion on that so much as where it's not as eventful or as effective as an artist to simply complain about the hypocrisy as much to add to what I consider to be positive, but some people might consider to be perverse or negative or dark or whatever the opinion is, but that's all art.
Well, this bipolarity between good and evil, in a way, dark and light and moral and immorality, is also reflected in your name, like Marilyn Manson. So
Absolutely.
Marilyn Monroe is like the dream, the American dream, especially. Maybe not only for you in America, but also for the Europeans, which failed in the end, and Manson is the nightmare.
Right.
So was that a reason also why you kind of connected those two names?
That's definitely why I attached the two together. And also, growing up in America, people referred to Marilyn Monroe as simply Marilyn. So and Manson was simply Manson. So it had a lot of different reasons. It was a magic word when I put them together, like abracadabra. But also, I think it becomes very strange when you say the bipolarness of it. And of course, that's a psychiatric term in America that I've probably had applied to me more than once. But I think that I have a very strong opinion about psychiatry. Someone asked me about that earlier today. Psychology is one thing, understanding the human mind, but psychiatry, which some people might credit Vienna for, spawning with Freud, but I think that to try and diagnose the mind of an artist could essentially destroy it, because without the angels and demons that exist in your head, you can't be an artist. So I think there is that element that as an artist you're always going to be tortured, essentially, that's what people see it as, but I've come to not feel tortured as an artist. I feel I'm accustomed to it. I try to just make the good feelings more than the bad feelings. As long as you're creating art, I think that ends up making you feel good. If you have any sort of torture in your soul, if you can express it and get it out, it's always something that makes you feel better or makes you feel like a person. It's when you can't, and there's been times when I couldn't actually make a song or I couldn't make a painting. That's the times when I felt tortured only, So when people think that I'm tortured, when I'm making art, I don't feel tortured at all. I feel very satisfied.